Hello, Facebook. Guys, I'm finally with you. It's so opportune that we're talking about grit today because we're 12 minutes late for you guys and we've had to use some grit to get on here in Facebook. Jen, what's happening? It's the Facebook guys were not with us and we've been trying to do it from the computer a couple of times, but now we are with you. So, look, let's get into it and thank you guys for kind of hanging around. Brett, what is happening, my brother? All right, today, one of the things I want to talk to you about is this idea of grit. And grit, I suppose, is not necessarily a word that I would have originally typically loved because it gives you the sense that it's got to be really, really hard work. And I don't know that this has to be all hard work. But let me give you the definition of grit. And so this is from a client session, and the client's probably watching. We were actually talking today, and you'll kind of, you know who you are. And she was just talking about the difference in the way she sees the weight management process since doing our sessions. So here's the definition. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon and not a sprint. So I really, really love this. And guys, this is from Angela Duckworth. So Angela is a scientist, a psychologist, a researcher, and a teacher who's actually written a book on grit. So if you can post the link to Angela's work, because she actually has a grit score and you can measure yourself in 5 minutes on your level of grit, that ability to kind of stick with things despite setbacks and not switch all the time from one thing to the other and really work persistently towards a long-term goal. I'll actually show you. I did my grit score and I got 3.9 out of 5. I actually reckon I might be a little bit more gritty than that. But anyway, Em's going to put up, she's put it up there. Thank you, Em, Angela's website. And you can actually take a grit test. So the second you get a little bored of me, why don't you do this test? We're going to try an experiment. If you do the test, but she's talking about grit in general. What I want us to do is think about our weight management grit. So she's talking to you about when I do things and then asking a question. I want you to do the questionnaire, but think specifically for you trying to take care of your health, your eating, your exercise, your weight, and see what score you come up with out of 5. Now, guys, this is obviously not scientifically validated, and I'm pretty sure that Angela's questionnaire is scientifically validated. So I know I'm kind of throwing all of that out the window, but I'm just asking us to just try a little experiment and see if we can apply that questionnaire to measuring our own level of grit. So as you're doing that, let me tell you why I really love this idea, because it changes the whole perspective as to what we're actually doing. And I have actually used this metaphor with my clients a lot, running weight management like it is a marathon and not a sprint. So if you think about what we typically do for weight management, the 8-week challenge, the 12-week, boot camp, a lot of those diet and exercise for weight loss plans, they're running your weight management as if it's a 400-meter sprint. And if you run a marathon and you sprint out the first 400 meters, it's no wonder that you're going to get short-term results, which a lot of people do. But then what you're going to find over time is that you run out of gas, it gets too hard, and you have to stop and take a breather before you start again. And that's what most of us do with our approach to weight management. So I'm going to digress a second here and tell you about a really cool YouTube video that I saw a while back. And the guy was talking about how to be good in a relationship. And he started off with a really funny little thing to say. He said, it actually starts with the intention to be good in a relationship. For you to start off with the intention, not of what am I going to get out of this relationship, but how do I be a good partner? And I thought that was actually really simple, but it was quite profound, that it actually starts with setting the right intention. And I think that with weight management, if we start off with that short-term focus, and if we start off with a weight loss focus, we're actually not creating the intention to change lifelong. They're sort of two different and almost competing goals. So I really think that this is something that's really interesting for all of us to consider, is what intention do we take when we look at managing our weight? Is it I want to get this result as quickly as I can? It's almost like a get-rich-quick scheme for weight loss. Or is my intention actually to create naturally healthy habits? Now, I don't want to get too conspiracy theory about all of this, but the research proven facts when we look at diet and exercise programs for weight loss show that 95 to 97% of them are ineffective. And I'm sure you've probably been there before. And they're ineffective at best, harmful at worst. So some of them can actually make you gain weight over time. That's what we call that Nike swoosh of weight loss. You lose a little bit of weight and then you gain it all back with interest. And so the dieting industry, all this stuff that we're talking about, and you probably, hopefully a lot of you are going, yeah, I kind of get that totally. The dieting industry knows this. But for me, I wonder, where is the investment in the dieting industry in changing anything? Because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, as we know, and it's all just based on repeat business. So if you sprint out the first 400 meters and then you run out of gas, you have to stop before you can recover from the horrible experience and go again from the start line or even further behind the start line, then you blame yourself. You don't blame the approach that you were given. You blame yourself as if it was, you're not tough enough, or you don't have the willpower, or, you're lazy, or whatever it is. Then that really works quite well for the dieting industry as a repeat business model. So I want you to consider whether you've done this in the past, or you may actually learn that you might be doing this yourself at the moment. I'm just reading a couple of posts here. Dieting companies can't make money as long as we lose all the weight and maintain it. That's right. If we lose all the weight and maintain it, then they lose customers by the truckload. And Brett, you're totally right. People do exactly need to learn that dieting simply doesn't work. If we look at the research on dieting, it gets a D- in effectiveness. But it's very different to what we're sold in the before and after shots. And this is something that I really want to talk about, that I think is really important, is that we need to stop paying lip service to diets don't work and actually transform the way we relate to food and movement and create lifelong habits. And this is a funny thing that I want to share with you, because this happens all the time in our workshops, and it happens all the time in my one-on-one sessions with clients. We talk about creating long-term change. We talk about not dieting, and everyone goes, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm definitely not going to do that. But then when we come in our workshops or in our sessions or in our online courses even, and we go, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to create a little habit change that can actually become a habit, right? We're not going to do something that's short-term and focused on weight loss. We're actually going to create a habit, and people kind of go, oh, is that all I'm going to do? It doesn't seem like it's enough. It doesn't seem like we're changing enough at a time. It doesn't seem like we're making a drastic enough change. It doesn't seem like it's going to get us enough weight loss. So what I really want you to think about, if you are thinking of actually, sort of taking some of this on board, is that when the rubber hits the road, I want you to turn this information into transformation. Jody said the majority of people don't really look at what's motivating them to diet. That's why they continuously cycle. I don't know, Jody. I don't know. I did my research in motivation and weight loss when I did my masters, and certainly people with more motivation do a bit better. But what we tend to find is, I think of a weight loss approach as you having the wrong approach. So say, for example, we've got this door over here, and this is, you can see it, this is how the door works, right? Imagine if I said to you, okay, what we're going to do is, I want you to really succeed with opening this door, but I want you to slide the door. You're going to really struggle to slide that door open because the door is not a slide door. So we're given the wrong approach, and I'd hate for people to direct their motivation towards an approach that's set to failure, because if your motivation, even if you're really focused, even if you really want the results, and you're trying to open that door by sliding it, it's just not going to work. So we definitely want to be motivated. And I suppose that's what really got to me when I read this quote about grit, is it actually, it's passion and perseverance for long-term goals. And I really think that the dieting industry has set us up to fail by creating these false hopes that we're going to lose weight quickly, that we're going to lose a lot of weight, that the weight loss is going to be easy. They set us up with these false hopes which make us more likely to jump from diet to diet, but we're actually not prepared to have that grit to stick with creating long-term habits in a long-term way. Jen, I love that. I totally agree with this. She said, I've broken up with dieting this year, and I feel 50% of my stress has reduced by getting out of the diet mentality. And that's such a great point, Jen. When you escape from the diet mentality, you lose a lot of weight in your head straight away. You lose a lot of pressure, you lose a lot of stress, so you win. And I think it's right. When we talk about, you have to have motivation and there has to be some kind of result. And if you want a result quickly, and I'm sort of suggesting that weight loss is probably not the best motivation for you long term, focus on how you feel, because if you start to get out of that dieting headspace, then you're going to feel really free of a lot of that pressure straight away. And then you can just start to celebrate those little wins. So I do certainly realize that this approach that I'm suggesting, it does take a lot of patience, and you might spend a lot of time going, oh, this is really small. I'm not making enough changes. I say to people all the time in our 12-month transformation program, that's what we do all the time. We have this constant theme throughout the year of people not feeling like they're doing enough. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm not changing enough. It's not fast enough. It's not big enough. And then we get towards the end of the 12-month program and people are kind of like, wow, look at where I've come from. And it's all come from just making the small changes. Yeah, Josie, totally agree. Quick fixes don't exist. You end up going backwards. So I think that, that we're hopefully we're all on a good page here. I wanted to talk to you about our program for creating healthy habits, and this, I think, it leads well into this discussion, because we're having little grins on our faces, because the next program that we've got coming up starting next Monday is our Naturally Healthy Habits program. And when people do this work, they're totally amazed. They just say to us, guys, this is a completely different thing. It's something different than that we've ever done before. I feel so free. I'm learning how to eat well without it being too much of a hassle or too much of a burden. I'm developing an enjoyment of exercise. I actually want to exercise. So they love the program, but we're actually having trouble marketing the program because it's all about long-term change. And long-term change, really, let's face it, it's not that sexy. So that's, I suppose, I feel like that's a responsibility for all of us. We, as people who are producing these programs, we need to get across to you guys the value of creating long-term habits in a way that excites you. That's our job, and I think we've still got a little way to go there. But you guys also need to change your mindset. So when the rubber hits the road, you're willing to go, hey, you know what? The last 4, 5, 6 diets I've done, in all of the versions of them, they haven't worked. And so, it's that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and trying to get different results. So I want you to, and this is, I suppose, a really sincere invitation to join our Naturally Healthy Habits program. It starts next Monday, and it goes for 6 weeks, and we talk you through exactly why diets don't work. So you have a real understanding of why the diet doesn't work from a psychological perspective, because our minds hate diets, but I want you to really understand why. Then we take you through a model of non-dieting. So it's not playing the weight loss game. It's playing a game where you actually learn intuitive eating skills and mindful eating skills that you can't unlearn, and they become second nature over time. And then we move into developing that same long-term relationship with exercise, developing an enjoyment of exercise. So when everything's going on around you, you don't feel like the exercise is the first thing that you want to drop off, so that when you're stressed, you actually want to go and exercise, so that you miss exercise. So you have a really positive relationship. And when you start off that way, we don't talk about weight loss in the program, so we don't promise any weight loss. We actually try and help you to make that smaller in your mind and then let go of it eventually. But it's an absolutely fantastic program. So Em, can you please chuck up the link to the program, and also to help you if you're umming and ahhing to get over the line, we'll give you our discount code. It's GMAC, GMACK, for 10% off if you just buy the whole thing up front, or GMAC PP for GMAC payment plan if you do the payment plan version. Anyway, cool, Josie, you're going to join. That's so cool. Brett Smith, the biggest loser. As someone that has transformed, I can tell you that the sooner you clear your mind about dieting, the better off you can be. Absolutely. That was something that I know, Brett, you get, and something that we spent quite a bit of time, all of us in the Biggest Loser house, talking about, because obviously in that competition, there is a real focus on getting that result, but then the need to at some stage change your mindset to create the long-term habits. And that's where I really hope that that I've been of use, and I know that these Biggest Loser Transform contestants are going to do better in the long term than they have in the past, because we've actually spent that time moving on, making transitions into focusing on naturally healthy habits. Oh, Simone, good question. How do I encourage a friend to move to a non-dieting approach? Because guys, the more you learn about non-dieting, the more you learn that we're actually, I love you too, Brett. The more you learn that we're actually doing something that's fundamentally different. So it becomes actually very hard to explain to people. I remember I was at a party on Saturday night, and I got what I actually often get from people is, someone was eating a chicken wing. It's like, don't eat that in front of Glenn, it's fatty. And I'm like, guys, this is not what we do. And I said, we follow a non-dieting approach, and as part of that approach, you're allowed to eat all food. And then the dominating forms of the conversation was, I just eat broccoli. No, you've got to plan your meals. And what I was trying to say kind of just got overwhelmed by everyone. And it took me, and I was determined to talk to this person and talk her through it. But it took me about half an hour before she actually got it. A good way to talk to friends about about non-dieting is just to talk about your personal experience. I'm sure that you guys have been told what you need to do about your weight by various people at various times, and it's not that fun being told that you need to do something for your weight, and we tend to be closed to that information often, and we tend to rebel against it. So I would talk about your own experience and what you're learning out of it, and say, this kind of happened to me. I didn't have food rules for 2 weeks, and I actually noticed the first week I learned a lot about my eating, and then the second week my eating kind of changed, but it wasn't really hard. So that was really interesting. Well, this guy told me, not to focus so much on my weight, and I instantly felt kind of relieved. So talk about your own experience, and also you might want to talk about some of I like to actually talk about some studies, some research, and I think that's, especially if you're talking to health professionals, which I'm doing a lot of the time, that's what people really kind of buy into. Jen said the same thing. Kezia, to encourage a friend, tell them about Glenn Macintosh. I actually think that's a really good way to do it, because a lot of people that I see are, when they come and see me, they're hoping that I can help, but they're not exactly sure whether I can help or not. And I think quite naturally, your partners and your friends and your colleagues are similar. So if you tell them your experience, they're probably in some sense, just because our brains work that way, if you've struggled with this for ages, thinking that this is the perspective of someone who has struggled, and they can kind of warp the ideas. For example, I had a client who said, my husband just told me, when I told him about this non-dieting idea, no foods are banned, he's like, that psychologist guy is just telling you what you want to hear. You want to eat the chocolate, and he's telling you you're fine to eat the chocolate. But she showed him one of my YouTube videos, and she said he's a very, straight and narrow man, an engineer, and he just listened to the video and went, I've got it. It's about sustainability. And of course, hopefully, I'm explaining this stuff reasonably well. It's what I kind of do for a living. So definitely directing people to our YouTube, directing people to our mailing list, because not everyone uses YouTube. And can you please chuck up a link just to our mailing list? So guys, if you're not on our mailing list, get on it. It's where we give you all our free videos and my blogs and everything. So guys, does anyone have any questions? Because unless you do, to try and think of any questions. But one thing that I want you to do, if you're not sure of whether this Naturally Healthy Habits program will be good for you, is I want you to go and replay this video if you need to. I want you to go onto our website and do our psychological profile for weight management. So Em, if you could chuck this up, geez Em, you are working for it today, as well as the mailing list. Em, if you could please put up the psychological profile for weight management. So this is our questionnaire. We've actually used this one. It's a series of scientifically validated questionnaires that measures your whole mindset for weight management. So things like the psychology of your relationship with food, your body image, your self-esteem, your attitude to exercise, everything. So if you do that, Em, don't say that. Don't say Em needs overtime pay. It's true, but come on. I spend all this time making Facebook and YouTube videos instead of seeing my clients. I can't pay Em anymore. Don't laugh, Em. So, where were we? Okay. If you want to do that questionnaire and see if this next program is right for you, there is a lot of scales on there, but the ones that you're going to want to check are firstly the intuitive eating scale. So when you do that, when you do the questionnaire, you'll get a report back and you can check with the intuitive eating scale. Now on that scale, higher scores are better, okay? So you want to look at your score and see if you're around close to the norm. You don't have to be perfect, but if you're close to the norm, then you're kind of right there. If you're above the norm, beautiful. But if you're quite a bit below the norm, you could definitely improve on building your intuitive eating skills, which is what we do in the Naturally Healthy Habits program. The other thing is there is a questionnaire there, like a subscale of dieting mindset. So on that, we actually want you to have less of a dieting mindset. So if you do that questionnaire and you're fairly high on the dieting mindset, higher than the norm, then the program will definitely benefit you. And the other thing to test is the exercise confidence scale. So that's a simple scale of 0 to 100, and there's some norms in there. you want to get up close to, you don't need to be perfect, but you want to get up kind of close to the norms, so you can, and that will mean that you're one of those people that exercises consistently, not just on and off or stop start or just not at all. So if you want to know whether our upcoming program is going to help you, check out your intuitive eating score scales, check out your dieting mindset scales, and check out your exercise confidence scales. And if you could do with improving those, then the program will definitely help. It'll actually, because everything's all related, it'll probably help you boost all of the other things as well. But that's what we really, really focus on. Oh, Kezia, it says, Em, we really appreciate you. We know that there would be a big gap in the service if you were at home with your feet up in your slippers. Well done, Em. You are amazing. Barbara asks, do we include tapping in the program, or is that separate? And that's totally separate. The Naturally Healthy Habits program, for me, is the fundamental basis of non-dieting for everything we do at Weight Management Psychology. So if we do positive thinking therapy or hypnosis or acceptance and commitment therapy or tapping therapy, it all comes from the basis of these naturally healthy habits. So we do all of those in a non-dieting way, but the actual tapping, we don't do tapping in that program. The tapping program is actually the program after this. So it wouldn't be bad to set a basis with this and then move on to tapping. But definitely in our tapping program, we do the tapping in a way that's consistent with this. So with the tapping program, it's not a weight loss program. We see the same thing. People kind of come up to us and say, they're on the Facebook group. Okay, so what's my meal plan? How much weight should I lose per week? And we're like, hey, no, we're actually taking this grit approach. We're just going to focus on just building small habits and tap on various aspects of your weight management, your eating, your movement, your body image, mindful eating, all of those things. We're just going to do that, and what happens is that people just focus on that, and over time then they get the results. So guys, I have no idea how long I've been talking for, and I think that is tons and tons for today. Thank you everyone who had the grit to stick with us while we sorted out our technical difficulties, and look, I hope everyone has had a good night, and I just wish you well and all the very best in your long-term transformations. Remember, weight management process is not a sprint, it is a marathon. So let's treat it that way, and then you're going to end up creating naturally healthy eating, moving, and mindset that is with you forever. All right, good night, guys.